Welcome to the Odyssey Sports Fantasy Football Show. I'm Chris Emma alongside my colleagues Jordan Cohn and Jesse Pantusco. Week 16 of the season is here, and it's the semifinals for most leagues. Congratulations if you're still going. We have some help for you. We have your waiver wires, your stream team, and your stealthy starts for this week. I will get us going down in Tampa with the second-year receiver Tyler Johnson. And Giselle once said about Tom Brady, he can't throw and catch the football. In this case, he needs somebody to catch the football. Mike Evans is week to week. Chris Godwin, unfortunately, out for the year with a torn ACL. Leonard Fournette, who's been the third leading receiver, he looks like he's going to be missing some time. So the Buccaneers have an issue, and they need somebody for Tom Brady to throw to. Tyler Johnson, after the injuries, was on the field and in running routes for 51 of 54 dropbacks by Tom Brady. He's clearly the next man up. He's owned in just 1% of Yahoo leagues, so he's probably available for you. He might be a wide receiver one from the best quarterback in the league this year. Go get Tyler Johnson. He could make a big difference for you, at least as a stash for this week, an option off the bench. We'll see where that one goes, but go get Tyler Johnson. Jordan, who's your waiver wire pickup this week?
Well, just like Brady needs someone to throw to, he also needs someone to hand the ball off to. So not a surprising or a mind-blowing pick here, but Ronald Jones is the guy that I'm going to go with. It obviously depends on the status of Leonard Fournette, but the latest that we've heard is that the starting running back for the Bucs might miss 1 to 2 weeks, which is a big chunk of offense that will be missing there and that Ronald Jones will likely fix. We can't take too much away from the game because of just the terrible script that the Bucs had the whole time, but Jones did run well. He had 8 carries for 63 yards. He broke one off for a 30-yard gain. He added 2 catches through the air. And the snap count didn't go overwhelmingly in his favor between him and Keyshawn Vaughn after Fournette's injury, but it makes sense that Arians would go with the more trusty and proven weapon in a closer game, which will hopefully be the case, or will hopefully be a blowout in the Bucs' favor and not like we saw against the Saints this past week. So I would go with Jones, who has been a viable and a very good fantasy fill-in when he's had the chances in past years.
Good pickup. I like that. Jesse, who are you picking up this week?
Well, guys, you learn something new every day. Until last weekend, I had no idea Duke Johnson was A, still in the NFL, and B, playing for his hometown Dolphins. The former Cleveland Brown manhandled the Jets in Week 15, scoring a pair of touchdowns to help Miami extend its winning streak to 6 games. Not only were Johnson's 107 rushing yards the most by a Dolphin this season, but he more than doubled Myles Gaskin's workload with 23 touches to Gaskin's 10. It's possible the Dolphins were being cautious with Gaskin following his bout with COVID, but it would seem Johnson has supplanted him as the Dolphins' RB1. Though Johnson was only targeted once against the Jets, he's always been a capable receiver with 307 career catches. With COVID wreaking havoc across the league, Johnson should be rostered in all leagues. And one last thing. If your team has already been eliminated, don't be that guy that still puts in waiver claims. You had your chance during the regular season. At this point, you're just being a jerk and spoiling it for everyone else.
Time now for our stream teams. And Jordan, you have a starters out with a quarterback. And for those of us who have Tom Brady, you might be wondering, maybe you might have to stream a quarterback this week. So who's your pickup this week?
Well, for what it's worth, I would still start Tom Brady over the name that I'm about to suggest. But you're right. It might be a tough week for you in the quarterback area. And so Matt Ryan against the Detroit Lions is probably my favorite option that might be widely available in your leagues. It's not easy to trust him at this point. I know that he hasn't really had the best season in fantasy football terms or in real football terms, but he's starting to find his connection with Russell Gage and Kyle Pitts. He's delivered some strong performances to them in past weeks. So why not expect a strong performance from him? And there might not be a better opponent to do that against than the aforementioned Detroit Lions. It could be an actually competitive game for fantasy purposes. 2 bad defenses, 2 somewhat competent quarterbacks, 2 guys that know how to read and dissect a bad defense. And Ryan really hasn't gotten a chance to play against too many of those bad defenses this year. So the Lions, who allowed the most net yards per pass attempt on the year, should be a good get-back week for Ryan if you really need to stream someone.
More on Russell Gage later, but Jesse, you have our stream team tight end this week. Who are you streaming?
Here's a stat that I think may surprise some people. The NFL's leader in touchdowns among tight ends this season is none other than Hunter Henry, whose 9 end zone visits are more than Rob Gronkowski, George Kittle, Mark Andrews, and even Travis Kelce. New England's offense sputtered last week, but that didn't stop Henry from scoring twice against the Colts, giving him 5 touchdowns in his last 5 games. Henry paced New England with 77 receiving yards in the loss to Indy, the most by a Patriots tight end since Rob Gronkowski in 2018. Initially, there was some concern among fantasy owners this season that Jonnu Smith might threaten Henry's usage. But that hasn't come to pass, with Smith settling in as a run blocker, eclipsing 20 yards receiving just once in his last 6 games. Assuming the Pats throw more than they did when they faced the Bills in Week 13, Henry should be a viable streamer for the fantasy semifinals.
All right, I have your stream team defense, and I have a fairly easy pick this week. It is the Seattle Seahawks facing the Chicago Bears in Seattle. I think that's a really, really tough matchup for rookie Justin Fields and for a Bears offense that's really struggled to find its footing throughout the course of this season. I don't like the odds of a rookie quarterback in that atmosphere. Seahawks have been a top 5 scoring defense. I don't see the Bears having a ton of success. A couple other options you might want to consider as well, but I would go with Seattle if I'm streaming a defense this week. So let's move it on to our stealthy starts. And I am going to mention somebody that Jordan mentioned earlier out of Atlanta. It's Russell Gage, and he's been heavily involved within that Falcons offense. 34 catches and 2 touchdowns the last 5 games. He's owned in just 50% of Yahoo leagues, so it fits a waiver wire pickup. Look to the waiver wires if you're trying to get somebody this week for the playoffs, but if you have him on your roster already, he's a pretty good start. Just started in 23% of Yahoo leagues, getting very involved, and Jordan touched on it. Good matchups for that game against the Detroit Lions. The Falcons should be able to move the football well, even with some of the limitations we've seen of Matt Ryan in that offense. So that's my stealthy start. Jordan, who's your stealthy start?
I'm just flipping on the other side of the field and doing the same exact thing, going with Amon-Ra St. Brown, who we've had on here a few times as a waiver option, maybe as a stealthy start. I know he was my stealthy late round draft pick when we did our first episode of the season, and that's really coming to fruition now. But he still might be the best fantasy option that you've never heard of, and that's probably because he's on the Lions, who really don't warrant all that much fantasy attention. However, St. Brown showed out yet again in Week 15. He now has 35 targets over the past 3 weeks for 249 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's going against the Falcons defense that, like his own team's defense, is very beatable. Despite the presence of A.J. Terrell, they've allowed the 4th most points to opposing wide receivers on the year. So yeah, again, like I said before in the Matt Ryan segment, this could be kind of a sneaky shootout, some high-scoring games. And yeah, we'll see if St. Brown and Gage can be those sneaky plays that get you a boost in the playoffs.
Yeah, Lions record 59 catches for St. Brown, rookie record, I should say. That's an organization that had Calvin Johnson, so he's having a pretty good year when you're in that company. Jesse, finish us off. Who's your stealthy start this week?
Well, when Derrick Henry first got hurt, fantasy owners rushed to the waiver wire to pick up one of Adrian Peterson or Jeremy McNichols. But instead, it's been D'Onta Foreman, who has emerged as Tennessee's clear workhorse, topping 100 yards rushing in 2 of his last 3 games, including a 108-yard performance in Sunday's loss to Pittsburgh. He's compiled 309 yards from scrimmage with 11 red zone carries over that 3-game span. Foreman's NFL career has been plagued by injuries and inconsistency, but remember, this is a guy who won the Doak Walker Award as college football's top running back not too long ago. The Titans' receiving core is unbelievably thin right now, with A.J. Brown and Julio Jones both hurt, leaving them no choice but to pound the rock. With that in mind, I'm looking for Foreman to show out Thursday against a 49ers defense that's allowed 14 touchdowns to opposing running backs this year.
That's it. Week 16 is ahead of us. Good luck in the playoffs if it's the semifinals. Onward to the championship. For my colleagues, Jordan Coe, Jesse Pantusco, I'm Chris Emma. This is the Odyssey Sports Fantasy Football Show.